The first red flag should have been my husband's strange text during the conference. Mom's been coming over to help clean, and don't worry about rushing back. But after 3 days of nonstop presentations and networking, I was too exhausted to read between the lines. The second red flag was the line of cars parked along our normally quiet cul-de-sac. I blamed it on the neighbors having another block party until I saw the white roses and ribbon archway adorning my front porch. My hands trembled as I turned the key in the lock. The foyer that I painstakingly decorated in modern minimalist style had been transformed into something straight out of a bridal magazine. White towel draped every surface, and fairy lights twinkled from corners where my art pieces used to hang. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing through the unfamiliar space that was supposedly my home. "David." "Oh, you're early." Diana, my mother-in-law, emerged from the kitchen wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before. Her perfectly coiffed hair and professional makeup seemed excessive for a Thursday afternoon. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." "The conference ended early," I said slowly, taking in more details. The furniture had been rearranged, creating an aisle through my living room. White chairs were lined up in neat rows, and a makeshift altar stood where my reading nook used to be. "Diana, what's going on?" "Well," she clasped her hands together, practically vibrating with excitement, "I've decided to take matters into my own hands. You're always so busy with your career, flying off to conferences, working late nights. My poor David barely sees you anymore." My stomach dropped. "Where is David?" "Getting fitted for his tuxedo, of course. Amanda's family recommended the most wonderful tailor." The room started spinning. "Amanda, as in Amanda Porter, David's ex-girlfriend from high school?" Diana beamed. "Isn't it wonderful? She moved back to town last month after her divorce. When I ran into her at the country club, it felt like a sign from above. She's exactly what David needs, someone who'll put family first." I gripped the newel post for support, my knuckles turning white. "Diana, what have you done?" "What you forced me to do," she replied, her smile never wavering. "The divorce papers are on the kitchen counter. I had my lawyer draw them up. He made it very simple. You get to keep your precious career, and David gets the life he deserves." I walked into my kitchen, now transformed into a catering prep area. Sure enough, a thick envelope sat on the counter, my name typed neatly on the front. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "Oh, but I am." Diana followed me, her heels clicking on the tile floor. "The ceremony is tomorrow evening, small and intimate, just family and close friends. Amanda already has her dress. She's practically glowing. Nothing like you in that business suit." I looked down at my charcoal gray pantsuit, suddenly conscious of my travel-wrinkled appearance. Then I remembered something that made me stand straighter. "Does David know about this?" Diana waved dismissively. "He'll understand once he sees her. They were perfect together in high school. If you hadn't swooped in during college with your ambition and your fancy internships." I tuned out her monologue, discreetly pulling out my phone. Last month, after Diana's increasingly frequent surprise visits while we were out, I'd installed a security system with cameras in every room. The app loaded, showing footage from the past 3 days. Diana directing movers to rearrange my furniture. Diana and Amanda walking through the house, pointing and laughing. Diana in my closet, boxing up my clothes. But no David. Not in any of the footage. "Have you actually spoken to your son about this?" I interrupted her ongoing rant about career women ruining traditional values. "Well, no," she admitted. "But once he sees how perfect everything is—" "Perfect?" I laughed, the sound sharp and hollow. "You broke into my house, planned a wedding without the groom's knowledge, and invited his ex-girlfriend. Which part of that seems perfect to you?" "I have a key," she protested. "David gave it to me for emergencies." "This isn't an emergency, Diana. This is insanity. The emergency is my son's marriage falling apart while his wife jets around the country giving presentations." Her composed facade cracked slightly. "Do you know he had dinner alone on your anniversary last month?" "No, he didn't," I said quietly. "We celebrated the weekend before because I had a major product launch that week. We both agreed to postpone it. We had a wonderful dinner at La Blanc." David posted pictures. "A postponed anniversary dinner," Diana scoffed. "In my day." "In your day, women didn't have careers outside the home. Is that what this is really about? You've never forgiven me for not quitting my job after the wedding. A wife's place is with her husband." My place, I said, pulling up a specific video clip on my phone, is wherever my husband and I decide it should be. And right now, it's in my house, which you've illegally converted into a wedding venue. I pressed play, and Diana's voice filled the kitchen. Just pack up all her things. If she wants them, she can get them from storage. Amanda has much better taste anyway. Diana's face paled. You've been spying on me? No, I've been protecting my home from exactly this kind of invasion. Did you really think David would go along with this? He's too nice to stand up to you, she snapped. Always supporting your career moves, your late nights, your conferences. Someone had to step in. Someone like his mommy? I asked sweetly. Should we call him right now? Show him the footage of you and Amanda planning to redecorate our bedroom. As if on cue, my phone rang. David's face lit up the screen. Perfect timing. I held up the phone so Diana could see. Should I tell him about his surprise wedding, or would you like to do the honors? Diana lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. Don't you dare. Don't I dare what? Tell my husband that his mother is trying to marry him off to his high school ex while I'm away. I wonder how Amanda's ex-husband would feel about these plans. He's a lawyer, isn't he? Diana's perfectly made-up face crumpled. You're ruining everything. I answered the phone, putting it on speaker. Hi, honey. You'll never guess who I found when I got home. Is Mom there? David's voice was tight with barely controlled anger, not his usual tone at all. Right here, I confirmed, watching Diana's face cycle through various shades of panic. Would you like to tell her what you just told me, or should I? Mom, David's voice cracked slightly. I just got a very interesting call from Amanda Porter's ex-husband. Something about you promising her my inheritance if she agreed to this scheme. Diana stumbled backward, gripping the counter for support. That's not. Not what? I asked innocently. Not what you told her when you promised her the beach house and access to the family trust fund? Because I have that conversation on camera too. You recorded my private conversations? Diana's voice rose to a shriek. In my house? I countered. Yes, I did. Just like I recorded you telling the movers to take my clothes to a storage unit. And you showing Amanda my closet, promising her she could have all my designer pieces once David came to his senses. David. Diana appealed to the phone. Sweetheart, I was only thinking of your happiness. My happiness. His laugh was bitter. By trying to marry me off to my ex while my wife was away. By promising Amanda money that isn't even yours to give. The trust fund is for family. Diana protested. Olivia is family. David's shout made us both jump. She's my wife, my partner, the woman I chose to spend my life with. Not Amanda, not any other woman you try to throw at me. And that trust fund. Grandfather left it to me, not you. You have no right to promise it to anyone. I watched Diana deflate, her perfect posture crumbling. But she's never home, always working. Because we're building a life together, David cut in. A life we chose. Those late nights you complain about, she's developing medical software that's going to help thousands of people. Those conferences, she's presenting research that could revolutionize patient care. I'm proud of her work, even if you can't understand it. Tears started rolling down Diana's cheeks, smearing her expensive makeup. I just wanted to control everything. I finished for her. Like you always do, but here's what's going to happen now. You're going to call Amanda and tell her the wedding is off. You're going to contact every vendor you hired and cancel their services. And you're going to do it all before David gets home in an hour. An hour? Diana's head snapped up. Yes, David confirmed. I'm at the airport now. And Mom? When I get home, we're having a long overdue conversation about boundaries. Diana looked around the transformed house, reality finally seeming to sink in. But all the deposits, the arrangements, are your problem, I said firmly. Just like explaining to Amanda why she won't be getting that trust fund you promised her. Amanda's ex-husband is particularly interested in that part, David added. Apparently, promising assets you don't own to influence someone's marriage decisions isn't exactly legal. Diana sank into one of the dining chairs, her designer dress crumpling. I was only trying to help. No, I said, keeping my voice level. You were trying to destroy my marriage because you can't accept that your son is happy with someone who doesn't fit your idea of a perfect wife. I'll call everyone, she whispered, pulling out her phone with trembling hands. Please don't tell your father about this, David. Dad already knows, David replied. He's the one who called to warn me about your lunch with Amanda last week. He's also the one who suggested Olivia install those cameras. The shock on Diana's face was almost comical. Her husband, the quiet man who never interfered with her schemes, had finally taken a stand. Richard, she breathed, but he never stood up to you before. David finished. Things change, Mom. People grow. Maybe it's time you did too. I ended the call, leaving Diana staring at her phone like it was a snake about to bite her. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the gentle hum of caterers in the background, still unaware that their services would soon be canceled. I should start making calls, Diana finally said, her voice small. Yes, you should. I walked to the front door and held it open. And after that, you should return my house key. The one for emergencies. This qualifies as your last emergency. She paused in the doorway, looking back at the wedding decorations with a mix of regret and embarrassment. For what it's worth, I really did think I was doing the right thing. I know, I said, surprising myself with a hint of compassion in my voice. That's what makes it so sad. As I watched her walk to her car, I pulled out my phone and started documenting the changes to my house. Something told me we might need proof of this invasion for future reference. David and I had some serious discussions ahead about his mother's access to our lives. The caterers looked up questioningly as Diana's car pulled away. Mrs. Matthews said to wait for final instructions. Pack it up, I said firmly. The wedding's off. And if Mrs. Matthews ever tries to hire you for an event at this address again, please call me first. As they began dismantling their setup, I walked through my transformed home, making notes of everything that needed to be returned to normal. But normal, I realized, would need a new definition after today. One that included stronger boundaries, better security, and maybe some long overdue family therapy sessions. My phone buzzed with a text from David, 20 minutes away. Love you. I smiled, typing back, love you too, but we're going to need a new emergency contact. His response came quickly. Already handled. Dad volunteered. I laughed out loud, imagining Diana's face when she realized her quiet husband had outmaneuvered her. Sometimes, the best surprises aren't the ones planned in secret, but the ones that emerge when people finally show their true colors. When David walked through the door 40 minutes later, most of the wedding paraphernalia had already been cleared out. He took one look at the remaining chaos and pulled me into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I should have seen this coming. We both should have, I replied, melting into his familiar warmth. Your mother's been escalating for months. He pulled back to survey the damage. The fairy lights still twinkled mockingly, and white tulle hung like ghostly remnants of Diana's failed plan. Dad told me she's been meeting with Amanda for weeks, planning this. Your father knew all along. David ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd never outgrown. He's been keeping tabs on her since that incident at Christmas when she announced to everyone that you were too focused on your career to give her grandchildren. I remembered that disaster vividly. Diana had waited until the entire family was gathered to launch her attack, complete with statistics about fertility declining after 35. Dad said he's never seen her this obsessed. David continued. She actually believed she could make me leave you and marry Amanda in the span of 3 days. The power of positive delusion, I murmured, picking up a discarded wedding program. My stomach turned as I read it. The union of David Matthews and Amanda Porter. David took the program and ripped it in half. Amanda just called me, by the way. She claims Mom promised her the beach house and half the trust fund if she could rescue me from my loveless marriage. Loveless? I couldn't help but laugh. Is that what your mother's been telling people? Apparently, working women can't possibly have time for love. He rolled his eyes. Amanda said Mom had this whole narrative about how miserable I am, trapped with a career-obsessed wife who's never home. I felt a familiar twinge of guilt, but David caught my expression and shook his head. Don't let her get in your head. I love your ambition, your brilliance, everything that makes you who you are. Even when I'm away at conferences. Especially then, he smiled. Because I know you're out there changing the world. Besides, who was it that supported me through 3 years of night school for my MBA? I smiled, remembering those long evenings of takeout dinners and study sessions. We make it work. We do, he agreed. Which is why I've made a decision. He pulled an envelope from his jacket, Not divorce papers this time, but something that made my eyes widen as I read it. You're selling the beach house? Already sold it, he corrected. The papers just need my signature. I'm done letting Mom use family properties as bargaining chips. But you love that house. I love you more. He took my hands in his. Besides, the proceeds will fund something much better. What? Your medical software startup, the one you've been dreaming about but wouldn't ask me to invest in. I stared at him speechless. The beach house had been in his family for generations. David, it's time for new traditions, he said firmly, starting with establishing some real boundaries with my mother. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Everything's canceled. I'm sorry. That might be a first, David mused, reading over my shoulder. Mom actually apologizing. Think it'll last? Probably not, he admitted. But things are going to change. Dad's insisting she see a therapist or he's cutting off her access to the family accounts. I raised my eyebrows. Richard put his foot down. Apparently, plotting to break up his son's marriage was the last straw. David smiled wryly. Who knew Dad had it in him? We spent the next hour restoring our house to its normal state, working together to erase the evidence of Diana's grand scheme. As I hung my favorite art piece back in its spot, replacing a wedding altar, David called out from the kitchen. Hey, look what Mom left behind. He held up an elaborate wedding cake topper, a bride and groom in traditional pose. Without a word, we looked at each other and burst out laughing. Should we keep it as a souvenir? He asked. Actually, I grinned. I have a better idea. The next morning, a package arrived at Diana's house. Inside was the cake topper, broken cleanly in half, with a note that read, Next time, try therapy instead of wedding planning. Love, your career-obsessed daughter-in-law. David's phone rang minutes later, his father, laughing so hard he could barely speak. In the background, we could hear Diana's indignant sputtering. Worth it? David asked as I unpacked my conference materials. So worth it, I confirmed, pulling out my presentation notes. Want to hear about the new patient care protocol I presented, the one that kept me away from your surprise wedding? He settled onto the couch, patting the spot beside him. Tell me everything. And so I did, knowing that this, our partnership of equals, our shared dreams, our mutual support, was exactly what marriage should be. No surprise weddings or manipulative mothers required. As for Diana, she started therapy the following week. Not because she wanted to, but because Richard finally learned to say no. Sometimes the best family traditions are the ones you break, making room for something healthier to grow in their place.